Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. I am Leona Abraham Brando, host of Blog Talk Radio, Shedding Light. Our guest, Andy Williams, Jr., candidate running independently for We the People Party, also known as We the People Are the Government, will be coming on very shortly. He will be joining us to speak on issues pertaining to a broken political system which needs the We the People Party candidate to take control and do something current political parties cannot do. Be the adults that know the problems, are willing to work on the issues of concern, and want the people of the U.S. to feel that they are worthy to receive the long overdue attention. The long overdue attention that only the elite thus far have been afforded. Many of you have been watching the case of the mass incarceration of that young man, 17-year-old young man that shot and killed 4 students in Wisconsin. The parent, so far the mother, has been on trial to determine if she would be found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, and unfortunately she was found guilty. I want to say something that a lot of people don't realize. The schools are also mandated to file a CHINS case with social services when they see a child is being neglected by the parents, when the child is in need of help or is in need of help and the parents are doing nothing. On the news, they said that the school would not be held accountable because they are a government entity. I don't see where being a government entity allows someone not to be held accountable, especially when it's a duty of a social worker or teachers to file a mandated report when they find concerns pertaining to a child under the age of 18. The mother was found guilty, and they say she can get up to 18 years. Another one that's responsible are these people in power, the NRA, the National Riflemen's Association, the producers of movies promoting violence by taking these unfortunate cases of violence, tragedies, and putting them out there to sell. And people in society are so busy wanting to watch these violent movies, yet they talk about the violence in their communities. The fault of that young man, they said, was crying out for help because he was hallucinating. He was seeing ghosts. He was seeing all kinds of things. Yet they had given this young man a life without parole, 17 years old. Not only giving him a life without parole, but also finding his mother guilty of involuntary manslaughter because she didn't do something about it soon. The father is due to be on trial as well. So we're going to introduce to you our candidate, Andy Williams, Jr., and I would like to have him speak a little bit about this situation as well, because we the people are the government. This has been a long-standing fact. We the people are the government. And Andy Williams, Jr. is not running for the presidential campaign, either of Democrat or Republican. He is running independently because he knows the situations that go on in this country. He knows all about it. And he is not there for the elite. He is there for the poor, the middle class, hardworking people. So we're going to have Andy Williams come on. He's going to introduce himself once again. He is looking at being the adult in the situation in the United States to feel that these people are worthy to receive the long overdue attention that only the elite thus far have been afforded. All are welcome to join in, ask questions, give feedback, or simply listen as we hear from our guest. The call-in number is 657-383-1630. Again, 657-383-1630. Take up your responsibility as an audience listening, as a citizen of the United States. Make it be your position as well to start joining, to start coming into the show, to start doing something on the outside. but just do something so that you can show, as well as we all can show, that our government leaders need to become adults, the adults that they don't seem to be, because it's about them. So let's welcome, once again, Andy Williams, Jr. Andy Williams, Jr., are you on with us?
I am. Good afternoon, Ms. Leona.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome you on. We have a caller as well, but I want to welcome you back to talk a little bit about the movement that you have going and the independent candidacy that you are to bring we the people together to finally, once and for all, be the government that has been lacking in all these years. So please tell the audience about yourself, your goals, your mission, your goals, your achievements. Please let the audience know about Andy Williams, Jr. Thank you.
Freedom is the only thing that should be on the ballot in this 2024. And the freedom is dealing with the people's rights, our inalienable rights that are given to us by nature's God and a creator. And the people are the ones that created government. Like, they created this system. So the system does not have more power than the people that created it. And the way that this current government for the last, who knows, 100 and something years has been operating is through these codes and these legislation and this ordinances and statutes. That doesn't apply to the people. But we've been bamboozled and hoodwinked into believing that that does. And what we need somebody is that understands the role of government, the role of those that are elected to represent the people, which you're really not representing the people when you're elected. The real goal is to protect the people's rights from government, corporate, and religious infringement. That is the role of government, to correct, protect, and direct. And so far, at least over the last 50, 60 years, ever since these acts have come about, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, all of these acts, those acts are unconstitutional. And I know it's hard for us to believe because we've been all up under these acts, but the Constitution is what limits government. Acts is what government has created, and that's how we've been enslaved. That's how we've been basically become slaves to a system. So instead of us being the people, we're slaves to the government. That's why they tax us without representation. They charge us. They lie. Most of them, I don't believe, even understand their job description, because they're just the blind leading the blind. And so it takes somebody that understands what a chief is, the different roles of the president, which is really a chief magistrate, a chief enforcer of the law, which is the biggest thing we need to be able to deal with, is what is law. And none of these codes and statutes is law. And it's contrary to what we've been taught. But there was a divisive system brought in through the Rockefellers in the 1930s with Woodrow Wilson and those prior that wanted to bamboozle the people, indoctrinate the people, so we would never get wind of our rights and who we are. And here we are 100 and something years later, 107 years later, and now we done woke up. And I want to represent that wokeness, quote unquote, the wokeness of freedom. And that's why I say freedom is the only thing that should be on this ballot for 2024. And a vote for freedom is a vote for Andy is a vote for freedom. That's what it is. Freedom, which is the inalienable right of the people.
Thank you, Andy. I'm going to ask the caller to state your name, please. And then I'd like to mention 5 things I'd like to have you touch on, which I think you and everyone else will agree are major issues in the United States. 904, do you want to state your name, please?
Yes, Sister Leona. I'm Tarhaka Amana El Bay, calling out of Jacksonville, Florida.
How are you, Tarhaka? It was nice having you on again.
I'm just fine. Hello, Mr. President. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. You know, you've been in my spirit the last week and a half, man. I just thank the universe for bringing you on this call, because we definitely got to catch up.
Okay, well, I'm here, and I'm listening in.
I want to mention 5 things that make this country so much injustice in this country. Again, I'm going to bring in the story of the young 17-year-old that killed those 4 students in school. His mother just got found guilty because she didn't address the issue prior to it happening. So the first thing I'd like to talk about is the school itself, because as a social worker, when a child in school, the teachers realize there's something wrong, and they contact the parents, and the parents don't do anything about it. The next step is for the school to file a CHINS case, which is a child in need of services, which this school failed to do in Wisconsin. That's number one. The parents, yes, so far, I haven't heard the father's side, but the mother, one of the things that people didn't pick up on when this trial was going on with this woman was that she was working. Apparently her husband was not. It said that she had to constantly be on her husband because her husband was doing nothing in the house. He was in his room. He was doing all these things, but he wasn't working. So now this woman, not only was she working to support the family, but she also had a husband that was doing nothing. You might call a deadbeat dad and husband. And then she had a son that was psychologically ill and actually complaining about it. So they said she could get up to 15 years. First of all, I think the school should also be held accountable, which they said the school can't be held accountable because they're government. Well, I'm sorry, but a CHINS case should have been filed, or a care and protection, a CMP, which none of that came up. So we have the injustices in the United States. It goes beyond a color, too, because this is a white family. But this is a problem we have in this country. Now, that's number one. The next thing is the NRA. They continue to be told to have stricter gun control. To have these people, when they apply for guns, they have a psychological evaluation. And I say they should be, periodically, they should be mandated to have psychological evaluations every 2 or 3 years. But they don't. They don't have to. People don't have to have a psych. I was a social worker. I had a firearm, which I gave up years ago. But they don't have you do psychological evaluations. That's number 2. Then you have these movie producers that are making all this money having these movies on violence, and people in society complain all the time about the violence, and yet they're paying all this money to go and see these violent movies. You can't have it 2 ways. It's like okay, Brother Andy, you are into the Bible, scriptures. Doesn't it say you can't serve 2 masters?
It does.
The people in this country are serving 2 masters, and they can't have it both ways. I want your thoughts on it, and Tarhaka, I want your thoughts on it as well, because We the People Party is for we the people are the government. And these are issues that the government doesn't address. So I'd like to have you speak first, Andy, on that, and let the audience know what your thoughts are and how you would handle something like that as the president of We the People Party.
Got you. So the case that you're talking about is out of Michigan, and the guy, Ethan, was the son. In fact, my restorative justice national chair, Heidi, is very involved with the case of Ethan Crumbley. That's his name. And so with the parents, I don't point the finger at the parents. The whole community should be held accountable, because the whole community needs to heal. Because, which I've read up on the case, articles, and the neighbors knew something was going on in that house. They knew it. They knew stuff was happening, things was there. So if you know something is happening and you turn a blind eye to it, you're just as liable. But are we really here to point blame, or are we here to heal as a nation? Because this vengeance, you got to suffer because I suffered. The female prosecutor in that case right now, her family's suffering because she done spent all this time trying to go after those 2 parents instead of really getting to the root of it. And the only way to get to the root of it is for us to begin to know our neighbors. This country needs to end the division. And this is what happens when you turn away from nature's God and a creator and attend to be your own God. This is what happens. There's no accountability because any situation can be avoided if we see the early signs of a broken child, a broken family, a broken home. And what should have happened is the neighbors should have came together and started nurturing that family. But it's come to a point, it's us against them. That ain't my business. And that attitude is what's got us where we are today as a people. So when Andy talks about we are the people, it's saying we are the people that have the power. Not government, not the school, not nobody. People have the power. These other labels are adjectives. Republicans, that's an adjective. That's describing something. A school, that's an adjective. That's describing a building. It's not. It's we the people. And we have to stop looking for somebody to do for us what we ought to do for ourselves. Each one teach one. This is the generation we coming up to. And somebody has to take this scenario, this situation, and say, I'm going to do what's right, not what's popular. That's what it has to be. That whole village, that whole city out there in Michigan is suffering. There's 4 children that lost their lives. Or is it 5? Because Ethan got life without parole.
True.
I know about that. My friend was a shooter in Illinois, Henry Pratt. They did the article, said 5 people lost their lives, no 6, because the shooter lost his life too. 15 years he went through this systemic oppression at that job. And the company's Henry Pratt, and there's a whole documentary about the racism, oppression, and discrimination in that country, in that company, Henry Pratt. And do we not believe that some people are just going to be fed up?
And the thing that bothers me as well is that we have this addiction, mental health and addictions in the United States. So this kid not only gets a life without parole, but now his mother is going to prison for probably 15 years, and the father, they haven't even had the father's trial. But again, the mother was out there working. The father was doing absolutely nothing. The father's the one that bought the weapon for the son. But these are things that mental illness and addictions in the United States is a major problem. And what do you do with these people who have these Department of Mental Health, these mental health facilities that are doing absolutely nothing? And so these are all issues that really have been ignored up until now. Now that you're talking about it, you're talking about what you would be doing as the president for We the People Party. And I'd like to have Tarhaka's view on all of this as well. If you can, Tarhaka, please tell us what your feedback would be.
Okay, sister, I'm of the persuasion from a lawful perspective. I think that any judge inside the United States will tell you that there is no excuse for not knowing the law. And of course, we know that education starts in the home. In my personal opinion, based on what we've already done here in Florida, it's taken a almost 1-year-old and began her education. Before she turned 2, she knew how to count, she knew her ABCs, she knew this, that, and the other, on a steady stream of education. And now she hasn't even gone to kindergarten yet, but I'm pretty sure that when she gets in there, she'll already know this stuff. Now, there's another thing that we have to understand too. All too often, we can't understand, well, how can the state step in and tell you this, that, and the other about your child? It is because when a child is born inside the United States of America, it is automatically state property. And what you're going to have to do is change that around. And that's what we try to show people how to do. Because once you turn your child over to the public school system or private school system, you've given somebody else in charge of their brain, which that's something that you're supposed to do. Once the mother is impregnated and she goes to the hospital and has the child, they create a certificate of live birth. And that puts the state in charge of the property or the vessel in question. And what has to happen is that has to change so that that property is your property, and if it's your property, then you take better care of it. As far as the rules and regulations, just like Mr. President said, we have statutes and ordinances, and they are exactly what they say they are, statutes and ordinances, but it doesn't have anything to do with the law. And we have to understand the difference. We understand that law goes all the way back to the natural order of things, and it is all natural. But what they have done is they have created this facade. They got us thinking that the dollars that we spend is actually money. It is not. You cannot find the word money printed on it anywhere. And it has absolutely no money backing it up. So we're going along with that. So when we do a thorough investigation of the structure of this country and its branches of government, its rules and regulations and guidelines and stuff in each city, each county, each state, then we get a better understanding. Then we have to deal with our own personal position inside of this country. And this is what I deal with on a daily basis. But as far as the young man and his mother and his father and stuff, what they're battling against is they're battling against somebody who's got them and their child as state property to do as they will.
The sad thing about it, though, is, again, this child obviously had mental health problems because he told his parents that he was seeing ghosts. He was hallucinating. Now, either he was on drugs or he was having some kind of mental illness, either or. But that meant that he was not capable, rational in the crime that he was committing. But yet again, when the kids go to school and the teachers see something that's not right and they notify the parent or parents, if the parents don't do anything, then it's up to the school. If they see something serious, which they apparently did, it's up to them to file a CHINS case, which is a child in need of services. The parent's not responding to our concerns, so then the social services would send an investigator out to the home to talk to the parents. But what I'm getting to, and I'm going to go back to Andy now, what I'm getting to is that this kid has already been sentenced to life without parole. Now it's coming out that this kid had mental problems. Again, we have mass incarceration, 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States of America, and the majority of them have had mental illnesses because, and I don't mean retardation, many of these people in prison, even though, especially those of color, have been traumatized as children growing up. They've come from the ghetto areas. They've been in infested areas of drugs. They came from domestic violence homes. They came from fatherless homes. You know, there's so many of them that were traumatized, violated as children, abused as children. And I'm not to say just the people of color, there's whites too, but what I'm saying is we have an epidemic in this country of mental illnesses that are not being addressed. They're thrown into prison. Now, this kid not only got a life without parole, even though they're admitting that he had psychological problems, but now they're going after the parents as well. So this is going to be a whole family that's going to go to prison when it's the government is just as at fault, especially the government, because the government should do something about the mental illnesses in this country and the addictions in this country, and they're not addressing it. And they have to go after these producers.
I don't really believe the government should do something about it. People should. And I think we really got to get away from looking at the government to be the solution. That's why there's never been a solution. And as my brother said already, which I'm very aware of what he's talking about, the government has been taking from the estates of the people through that birth certificate that says to convey trust, and that's how they get paid. So there's no green light or light at the end of the tunnel that corporate United States of America has anything to do with reducing mass enslavement. That's how they generate their revenue. Why would I stop? So what we the people have to do is to get into our sovereign rights and abolish this, starting with self, then our family, then our community. And so often we're looking at the giant without a full understanding. We don't comprehend what's going on. And I know last week we had talked, Ms. Leona, this campaign really is a movement, because that's exactly what Donald Trump has, a movement. This is not about an election. This is about people that are so intrigued with this man that they're just following. And a lot of things that they're saying is accurate, but they're not testing the spirit of the man. They're only listening to the words and hearing the surface of what he represents. But I judge a tree by his fruit, and I'm not disrespecting him. This is, again, it's a race. So let the one that's more qualified for the position. And all we got to do is get the message out. That's it. That's it. That's all we got to do. Because the way we shifting up this is, which I've been talking to conservatives, and there's somebody that was not registered to vote, and I shared with her information on how to vote as a sovereign, where you're not giving up your rights. A lot of us don't recognize that when we're registered to vote, we're voluntarily submitting ourselves to have somebody represent us in a democracy where the majority rules. And that's unconstitutional, because the majority is mob rule, and you can never rule over my rights. My rights in the Bill of Rights, they are protected. They come from nature's God and the Creator, not from the government. That's why I'm not interested in these acts and these statutes and these codes. We're dealing with common law, natural law, which is do your neighbor no harm. And in the case of Michigan with Ethan, listen, there was something that happened there. There was. And under common law, there's a conspiracy charge. And every last one of the people that knew, said they saw something, went on, they would all be brought under a conspiracy, conspiracy claim, but not for punitive, but for restorative. That's the key. There's a restorative justice. People need to be held accountable when you injure somebody's property or their individual natural person. There is an accountability. But if the accountability behind it is based on vengeance, that is wrong. It's always been about a correctional facility, which started out as reform schools, which that's where Ethan should have went to if the neighbors would have saw that. Because Donald Trump, when he was 13, he went to a reformatory school because his parents had access to the resources. Those people over there were behind on bills. At least this is what the paperwork says. The wife was in an extramarital affair. That's somebody that's broken. Stop looking at the affair and understand why. What is the brokenness? We're just so busy pointing the finger that we're not even, especially those that profess to follow Christ, we're not even discipling, we're not even ministering to people. Specifically to those that are called of the faith. Then represent that. Show some love. For God so loved the world. Since we love John 3:16, he so loved the world. It didn't say he loved the believers. He told those that were believers to go out and make disciples. That's what he said. And then he said, very few willing to do this. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than a rich man to get in the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because I don't want to give up my stuff. And I'm talking about that kingdom of heaven that's on earth. That one. Let your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That's the one I'm talking about. Because all of these wealth and riches have come through these corporations, which are dead entities.
You know, you
We should
said
get
it.
into some real stuff.
That's the problem. It's about money in this country. And this is why when I interview people from other countries, you know, like from the Netherlands, from Belgium, Amsterdam, they say it themselves. These people are thousands of miles away from us, but yet they see in this country, they say it themselves. This country is full of vengeance, corruption, it's full of hatred, it's full of racism. These people are seeing it from across the pond. And we have someone on the call now, and I'm going to take them off mute. 11111111. You want to state your name, please?
Vincent.
I'm sorry. What was your name again?
Vincent.
Vincent, would you like to put in some feedback to this?
Yes.
Please.
Let me ask you a question. Tell me your best quality.
My best quality is compassion.
Yes. Tell me why.
Because if you were on the side of the road and you were in need of help, you might think that your best friend or your family member is going to help you. But then again, we are so surprised at times because when we think that our best friends or family are going to help us when we're in dire need, those are the last ones sometimes that are there for you. The strangers will be there before the family or friends.
Yes.
What are your best qualities? Can I ask you this? Because one of the things that go on in this country is people,
Yes.
they test. They test others. They judge others without even knowing others. And a lot of times they judge even by the color of someone's skin, but they forget that color is pigmentation. It's the same. Everyone's the same below the pigmentation.
Yes.
But what are your best qualities?
Okay. Tell me about all the gifts and skills and abilities you have.
Okay, I'll tell you how I was raised, because I came from a very good family, and I came from a very good environment. Unfortunately, there's brothers and sisters all over the world that some of them don't have the opportunity. But I came from a wealthy community, not to say that we were wealthy, but we came from a wealthy community, prominent. Okay, I came from a family of 9 siblings, a mother and father, who taught us morals. They didn't waste their time teaching us how to hate others. They took their time, all their precious time throughout our years to teach us how to love, never make fun of someone else, never lie, never laugh at other people, never think you're better than other people, never judge people. You asked me, I'm telling you my morals, okay? You asked me my best qualities.
Good.
I can't be anything else. I can't. Now yours.
There's not a thing wrong with what you just said, and God bless you for claiming that right. What you just said is articulate, it is intelligent, and it is logical.
Thank you.
Thanks for your call.
Now, I'd like to ask you about...
and be well.
I'd like to ask you your good qualities, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, so...
I really do want you to consider one more thing.
Okay.
Do you have, like, a job?
I'm retired. I'll tell you what I've done, though. I'll tell you what I've done for work in my lifetime.
Fair enough.
I've worked in hospitals. I've worked in grocery stores, department stores. I worked with counseling agencies.
Okay.
I did social work. I did work with every home health agency in the town I came from. Yeah, I traveled 11 third world countries. I did missionary work abroad. I wrote books. I self-published books. I'm a prisoner advocate. So this is what I've been about. You know, I've done these things, and I have all my credentials to show it. I've even worked for the I trained with the Department of Corrections, but I didn't stay with the Department of Corrections because I don't like the way they operate.
I'm asking you how you feel about what you do.
I feel that God has been with me. I don't know if you're a believer. A lot of people say they believe in God, but they don't. But I've had experiences.
Yes.
people wouldn't understand if I told them. They would think I was crazy. But I know there's a living God, and I know that we're all going to be held accountable at some point in time. And we see it happening now, because it says if we can tell when there's going to be a storm, we should be able to tell the signs of the time. Everything that's happening right now in Ukraine and Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, Israel, Gaza, all of this, it was all predicted. Look at what's happening in California right now. That's predicted. The flooding, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, all of these. We have global warming. In the book of Genesis, God told Noah after the flood, he said the next time will be by fire. We have nuclear weapons out here. We have fires all over the place. We are in those final seconds.
That's okay.
This is why we have to really get serious about what we're doing and the way we're feeling and the way we're treating others, because something major is going to happen in the next year or so. Definitely. We're on the verge of a third world war right now.
Is that the truth or a lie?
That's the truth. That is the truth.
Fair enough.
I don't know what state you're in, but I'll tell you right now, I bet things are happening in your state that you never thought would happen.
I live in America.
No, state, not country. Not country, we know.
Well, Leona, what was the other question that you was asking?
Well, pardon?
I said, what was the other question that you were asking? You was asking the president something else.
The mental health issues and the addictions in this country?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what's happening right now with the addictions and the mental health? You know, they're talking about it on the news now. They're desperate because people are leaving the medical field. They're leaving the mental health field. People are not, these teachers are getting these teachers are getting all these raises, yet they're not even teaching the children right in school, but yet people that are working in the medical field and the mental health of situations we have in this country today. The contracted agencies within the penal system, look at WellPath. You go on the internet and you type in WellPath lawsuits, they're getting sued all over the place because they're not experienced.
Really?
They're not trained well enough. And so people are being harmed permanently by these contracted providers within the penal system. Now, do you have any questions for the candidate? Do you have any questions for Andy Williams, Jr.?
Yes. What do you want?
What do I want, as in what capacity is that question?
Yes.
It's a broad question, though. You're saying, what do I want? That's a very broad question.
Well,
Tell me how that's a good deal for you.
I've been in this dealing with Blog Talk Radio for a long time. What we have here is simply a cutting off of minds. Leon, let's go ahead on and proceed with the show. Go ahead and mute that mic, and let's go ahead on the roll.
Okay. Now the caller dropped. Okay, so we can go on now. We get calls like this periodically, but the thing is, it goes to show that the extent to the mental illnesses in this country and addictions. So when we get calls like this, I want the audience to listen fully, because what they don't realize is people in prison, many of them are more sane than the overseers. Many of them are more sane than people actually that call in sometimes just to call in. It shows the extent of mental illnesses in this country. And that's why I allow these things to happen. But the listeners, the audience themselves, if they're that concerned about changes that they want to see occurring in the United States of America, then they need to make it their point to come on the show and ask reasonable questions and give reasonable feedback. If they want to criticize, like I say all the time, I don't mind being criticized because that's how we learn. But we also share, and what we share may be educational to other people listening. So Andy Williams Jr., candidate for We the People Party, and we the people are the government. If everyone goes back to the very beginning, they will know that the government is of we the people. So Andy, I will let you continue where you were talking, and also Tarhaka, if you can also. I'm going to put myself on mute now so I don't keep interrupting you two.
Well, go ahead, Brother Tarhaka.
Okay, Andy. I don't know if a lot of people would agree with a lot of what I have to say at this point here. Me personally, what I have engaged in, and I believe that we're at a point now in America, and I can only deal with my own people and our own children and stuff, where we teach them how to protect themselves. At an early age, at 9 years old, I was taken by men who were coming out of Vietnam. And they told me, said, well, look, what we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to track. I'll teach you how to go in the woods and find food to eat, teach you how to fish, teach you how to go inside the woods and find a man or find an animal or whatever it is that you needed to do. And then later on, a few years later, say, okay, we're going to teach you something else. We're going to teach you how to shoot. And that they did, and they did it very, very well. And they told me to say, now, this is what you do. You take the same training that we gave you, and you pass it on to your children and your relatives and stuff, and that is exactly what I did. And as far as the mental illness is concerned, I see a lot of times mental illness has been being used as a scapegoat, so to speak. You and tough, you done something stupid, and so what we're going to do is we're going to start crying mental illness. You done this because you was mentally ill. And I mean, this thing here has been flying across America here lately, every kind of which kind of way. You know, you go into school with a weapon and you just start shooting your classmates, and next thing you know, they say, okay, well, he was mentally ill. You go into a shopping center and gun people down, and they say, well, okay, he was mentally ill. And I mean, I want you to watch this kind of thing that's going on all the way across the United States of America. Every time there's some big horrific incident, it's automatically mental illness. Now, I'm down here in Jacksonville, Florida. We had a guy that went over to a dollar store. When he got to the dollar store, he seen a security officer. He left there. He went over to the college, Edward Waters University, and was preparing to do a shooting over there, but security pulled up. So he left there, went down to another Dollar General store, looked around over there, didn't see any security. He come out with an AR-15, walked in there and just started shooting, gunning people down. Now, when I seen that, I said, well, okay. And then next thing you know, of course, you know, he's mental illness. He has mental illness. And then the question is now, okay, well, if you had mental illness, when you went to the first thing, you seen security, and you turn around, and when you went to the college, where was your mental illness then? It didn't kick in until you got to the last place that had no security, and then you went in there and started shooting and gunning down people. And then the next thing we know, the television media is saying, well, he has mental illness.
I agree with what you're saying, but then again, what you're doing also is stereotyping, because we're not saying that everybody has mental illness. But real quickly, I want to just cut in because we have another caller, 323. You want to state your name, please?
323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your name, please? 323. You want to state your n
323? Okay, I guess they're just listening. But real quickly, I want to say, when we talk about people going in with these assault weapons and everything, and most likely you're talking about a young man, and that young man probably came from a background of hatred in his family and taught a lot of that evil because that's the way he was raised. But we don't want to stereotype all people. We're talking, we have a serious epidemic in this country of mental illnesses and addiction, but that doesn't mean to say that everybody that has committed a crime has a mental illness. What I'm saying is the majority of people behind the prison walls, the environments that they came from were traumatic. You and I maybe didn't have that kind of experience, or Andy, but it happens to a lot of these people in prison that are in their 90s, 80s and 90s. They're in wheelchairs, dementia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, some of them terminally ill. They're still sitting in prison. They went in when they were young, and there's no reason for them to still be in. But crime back then in their days was nothing like it is today. So as we go on and on throughout the years, times are changing. Things are getting more violent because more pressure is put on people. There's more expenses. The economy is worse. The prices are going up. These large corporations, as Andy mentioned earlier, these big corporations that are making so much money off of incarceration, these people are making money off of these tragedies and these unfortunate situations. Yes, there's a lot of people committing crimes that are not mentally ill. They may be committing crimes because this is the kind of lifestyle they were raised in. But we don't want to stereotype, because that's taken away from the thousands and thousands of people in prison that don't belong in prison. They serve their time. Some of them have been in 35, 40. Look at the brother that just got out. 48 years he was in prison on a conviction, a wrongful conviction. 48 years later, this man he lost his youth, everything, and now he's out. What can he do at the age of in his 80s now? We don't want to include stereotypical views on people like that. We just don't. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Andy. I'm sorry. And 323, if you decide you want to say something, I took you off mute, so be free and to say anything you want, because that's what we're all about, is shedding light.
You with us, Andy?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I'll give
here.
it back to you. I'll give it back to you too.
Well,
like I say though, I encourage people all the time not to stereotype, because that's what happens even with people of color. When we have these stereotypes amongst us, you know, we're all put in the same category. When some people go out and do crime, these young people that are out there committing crime now, they're not making it any better for those who have been in prison for years, that have already served their time, beyond their time, that have already gone through all the abuses that they can go through, torment, torture. Look at, there's a Hakeem Shahid. He was in Marion prison in Ohio. He was tortured for years. He came out. I know so many others that have been tortured. And look at this, what's his name, in Florida, scalded alive. Darrell Rainey, scalded alive, every piece of meat and muscle separated from his bones, locked in a shower by the COs, and scalded. People could hear it on the block, screaming for his life. We don't want to stereotype. We don't want to make it worse for people that are deserving because of some that are out there robbing stores for no reason at all and bringing out assault weapons that their father or mother probably got for them to kill a black man or a brown or red or beige man. I don't know, but we cannot stereotype. Back to you guys.
Well, my website is www.awj2024.com. Reach out to me. All social media platforms. It's under the Hood Candidate, HOOD Candidate. You can see me on all social media. This is a movement, and one thing, once you will get to seeing about our campaign, we're already doing the things that need to be done. Currently, right now, I have a major lawsuit against the state of Illinois for running a criminal enterprise through their traffic ticket schemes and driver's license scheme that violates the supremacy clause because none of us are using the majority of us do not use the roads for commercial purposes. And the only one that needs a driver's license is those that are engaged in commerce. And these are our common law rights. That's what they are. And it's more than just saying that, you got to put them on notice, correct your status, let them know you're not one of their citizens, that you are one of the people. There's a big difference between that. You're not under their codes and statutes. And that's why this campaign is about freedom. Because it's truly about setting the captives free. Oh, no man, nothing but to love one another. And the minute that we start living in that realm, then those things that happen in Michigan will be less likely to happen because all of these extra pressure, debt, worry, woes, financial things, they won't be a factor. They won't be a factor. And we can go back to people having, maybe one parent out of the house working while the other parent is being the nurturer, the provider, having meals together at the family table, meeting at a specific time. See, this is what America needs to be getting back down to the Leave It to Beaver type family stuff, where it was all about family. You think about the early 70, 80 TV shows, the sitcoms. It was always about a family. And now you look at them now. It's a whole different thing. Most eligible bachelor and this. And listen, it's all about freedom of choice. But those that believe in family and morals and values and principles, then we need to start representing that. That's what we could do. Because people, I can't speak for all people, but the ones that I'm aligned with, we're fed up. And we're not looking for a savior. We got to recognize we are our own saviors. Ain't nobody coming to save y'all. You can stop thinking that. Stop it. Believe that all power has been given up to the people to take dominion over the earth, not dominion over people. The role of government is to protect, correct, and direct, not to oppress. And that's what it's been. And it's only we the people gonna save it. That's it. And if you waiting for Andy to get elected to save you, then I'm going to tell you the truth. Cast your vote somewhere else. If you're looking for freedom right now and you can't wait, then you need to contact our campaign. Because we ain't waiting till November 5th, 2024. You look at these candidates promising what they're going to do if they get elected. If the vision that you had is that good, why do you need to get elected to do that? Why? If you got experience in health care, you going to give all the people free health care? That doesn't even make sense. Who's going to pay for it? If we really were thinking logical that they're thinking. But I know a whole different side of the story of living in the private and not in the public, and that's what we need to get back to as a nation. Mind your own business, respect one another, and that's what the Freedom Campaign is all about. AWJ2024.com, freedom. That's it I got for this show.
Thank you so much, Andy. I want to say one thing, too, real quick. This has nothing to do with the U.S. Well, it does, because, we don't know who to trust anymore, and it talks about it in Ephesians. It talks about we are not wrestling against flesh and blood, but against the powers and principalities, rulers of darkness in high places in this world. But what I want to say is I was watching Daystar the other day. There was this, his last name is Ackerman. I don't know what kind of priest or pastor or what he is, but he had a guest on his show, and he's been bringing on every week, I guess, that they're selling these proclaimers. They're saying that they're giving them away to people in Africa, the prisoners and the people in the remote areas. I called after that because they've been doing this collecting, trying to get monies for these proclaimers. They say they're donating. I called them and I said, I'm a prisoner advocate. I said, this guest on Ackerman's show was talking about giving these proclaimers that cost $500 each to people in the prison. I said people in the prison cannot have those things, so they're not giving them to these people in prison. They have to be giving them to someone else, and they said they're giving them to the correctional officers. But this man was talking about how he was meeting with the prisoners, and the prisoners were saying that they were helping others, with the proclaimers they got. So we need to watch out in this country, because the people that are going over to those countries are from this country. We have to be cautious about who we are listening to, what is being said to us, and whether we should believe it or not, because that's how many are deceived. And so we have to be aware of all of these things, especially in these days, these last final seconds of these last final days. And I just wanted to bring that up because I don't like anybody being abused, but especially people from the original continent where the biblical times really started. And I don't like deception or lies, and that's what we get from a lot of people that we interact with throughout the years. But Andy, I want to thank you for coming on, Tarhaka. If you have any last words, Tarhaka, as well, I'm looking forward to having you back on the show sometime too, Tarhaka. But if you guys have any last words before we shut down, please feel free to talk.
Okay, if anybody want to contact me, they can go to my website at tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's tarhakadebtelimination.org. I also want to say, as far as our children are concerned, I think we should teach them. And once again, I think that every man should have a library in his home, and he should teach his children and train his children and make them self-sufficient. So when there's something that comes up or some kind of danger or something like that, they're able to handle themselves because they have been trained well. We have the right to bear arms, and so that is a part of our right as well. But once again, tarhakadebtelimination.org. That's all I have to say.
And one of the things I want to say is when you bring your children up, also, sometimes we protect our children, and they're very, very vulnerable to those who are more experienced and have been out there in the environments much more. So when you teach your children the right things, also teach them to be very cautious, because they are very vulnerable when they're not into any drugs or alcohol, when they're not into crime, when they're doing everything possible that everyone would want them to do. They can be very vulnerable to those in their environment, those that approach them, those that manipulate them. So keep that in mind as well. Andy, I want to thank you again and for clarifying a little bit more about We the People Party. And I'm looking forward to it. As I say, I know where my vote's going to go, and it will be going to you, because everything that you're talking about is everything that we desire. So hopefully you'll be getting a lot of votes. You mentioned Donald Trump real quickly about his followers, and pretty much that to me is like a cult. But in your situation, you're doing the same thing. You're bringing people together as the We the People Party, independently. I don't know what Trump is, if he's independent, Republican, Democrat, I don't know. But we have an opportunity to come together with this We the People Party and joining the presidential candidate, Andy Williams, Jr. So I hope everybody will listen in. I hope you'll visit his website and get more involved in what he's about. And we are going to be ending this episode now. Again, I want to thank you, Andy, for coming on. I feel honored to have you on, Tarhaka, as well. I want to thank you both for coming on and making this show what it should be, shedding light. Thank you so much. Audience, we look forward to having you on Thursday. We will be interviewing Kyle Robertson and Kenny Lai, two former prisoners, both achievers, and two different stories. So join us Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time to hear from Kyle Robinson and Kenny Lai. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you again, Andy and Tarhaka.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Something about the new year makes it easy to be on top of things, and Pearl Vision makes it even easier to be on top of eye care. So start the new year off right by scheduling an eye exam at pearlvision.com. Book now and get 40% off lenses for adults and free lenses for kids with frame purchase. Valid prescription required. Valid at participating locations. Restrictions apply. Taxes extra. See store for details. Ends 3/31/24. Exams available at the Independent Doctors of Optometry at or next to Pearl Vision. Some doctors employed by Pearl Vision.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.